ever get that feeling? Like even the tiniest things, like doing the dishes or answering an email, it feels like climbing Mount Everest. We've all been there, right?
Yeah.
That I should be doing this, but I just can't.
Yeah.
Feeling.
Yeah.
Well, today we are going to dive into some really interesting research and expert opinions on this to understand this common struggle, the feeling of being lost,
right?
Not lazy.
It's a really important distinction, actually, and one that often gets overlooked,
Yeah.
People beat themselves up thinking they're lazy when they might just be lacking a little direction.
It's so true.
Yeah.
And to help us unpack all of this, we've got a lineup of some amazing thought leaders.
Oh, yeah.
Brene Brown, Mel Robbins, Viktor Frankl, James Clear.
Love him.
Even the Kaizen philosophy. They all kind of point to this more nuanced understanding of why we get stuck sometimes.
Yeah, and what's exciting is once we figure out the why, the reasons behind it all, then we can start to explore some strategies for actually moving forward.
Love that. So let's start with this whole idea of laziness.
Okay.
Brene Brown, who's done incredible work on vulnerability and shame.
Oh, she's amazing.
She argues that often what we call laziness is actually rooted in much deeper emotions.
Yeah, she's found that fear and shame, especially the feeling of not being good enough, can be paralyzing for people.
Wow, yeah.
They avoid taking action because they're afraid to fail or, to confirm those negative beliefs they have about themselves.
Yes, like what's the point in even trying?
Exactly.
And then we end up doing nothing and we just feel worse.
Ugh, it's a vicious cycle.
Totally. And then Mel Robbins, she's all about taking action.
Yeah, love her.
She builds on this idea. She says procrastination isn't about a lack of discipline. It's more like a stress response.
Interesting.
When we feel overwhelmed or unsure, our brains basically hit the snooze button.
That makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're not inherently lazy. Our brains are just trying to protect us from what they see as a threat.
That's kind of comforting, right?
It is.
It means we can work on those underlying feelings of stress and self-doubt instead of just blaming ourselves for not being productive enough.
I love that. Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting. Viktor Frankl.
Oh, wow. Okay.
A psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust. He had some profound insights into, the human condition.
Yeah.
His book, Man's Search for Meaning, explores the idea that a lack of purpose can actually be a root cause of what we might call laziness.
Wow.
It's heavy stuff, but so powerful.
Yeah. And, his own experiences in those camps led him to develop logotherapy, a therapy that really focuses on finding meaning in life.
Amazing.
Yeah. He believed that without that sense of purpose, we just kind of drift, we get distracted easily, and ultimately we end up feeling lost and unfulfilled.
If you don't have a why, then any way will feel pointless.
Exactly.
So how do we even begin to figure out our why?
Well, James Clear, the Atomic Habits guy.
Of course.
He offers a really practical place to start. He says it's all about aligning your actions with your values. So if you're feeling lost, ask yourself, what are the things that make me feel truly fulfilled? And what achievements am I most proud of? And why?
Those are such good questions.
Right.
They really make you think.
Yeah.
Okay, so once we have a better understanding of those values, then what?
Then it's about taking action, but not necessarily these giant leaps.
Okay.
The Kaizen philosophy from Japan is all about making small, continuous improvements. Instead of focusing on this huge task, you break it down into bite-sized pieces.
So instead of I need to write a novel, it's more like I'm going to write for 15 minutes today.
There you go.
Much more manageable.
Exactly. The material we looked at actually had this great example.
Yeah.
If the gym feels overwhelming, just start with a 10-minute walk around the block.
I love that.
Wow.
Small steps, big impact.
Totally. It's all about that momentum.
And speaking of momentum,
Yeah.
Mel Robbins has this amazing technique called the 5-second rule that I find super helpful for procrastination.
It's so effective. When you feel that hesitation coming in, just count down from 5 and then just do it.
I love that.
It's like you're cutting off that voice of self-doubt before it can even take over.
Totally. It's like outsmarting your own brain.
Yeah.
I've used it for everything from getting out of bed to making those tough phone calls.
It's amazing what a difference it makes.
It really is.
And the key is by taking action, even a tiny one, you build confidence and create more positive momentum.
So we've got aligning actions with values, taking small steps, and the 5-second rule to break through that initial inertia.
Yeah.
I'm feeling more motivated already.
That's awesome.
But there's one more piece to this puzzle of moving from lost to found.
Okay, what's that?
mindset.
Ah, yes. Mindset is huge.
I've been reading a lot about Carol Dweck's work on growth mindset, and it's really changed how I think about challenges.
Oh, yeah. Dweck's research is incredible. It shows that people with a growth mindset see obstacles as opportunities to learn and grow.
I love that.
Instead of seeing failure as, a sign of their worth, they see it as valuable feedback.
It's like instead of saying, I'm bad at math, you say, I'm not good at math yet.
Yes.
It completely changes the meaning.
That little word yet is so powerful.
It really is.
It opens up so many possibilities.
Okay, so we've talked about tackling those feelings of laziness, connecting action to values, the power of those small steps, overcoming procrastination, and embracing a growth mindset.
It's amazing how it all connects, isn't it?
It really is. It paints a much clearer picture of why we feel stuck sometimes and what we can actually do about it.
Yeah.
I'm already feeling more hopeful just thinking about it.
I love that.
And this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
In part 2, we'll dive into even more strategies for building purpose and really turning those insights into lasting change.
I can't wait.
Stay with us. Welcome back. So before the break, we were talking about aligning actions with our values, and I've been thinking about those questions, like what really makes me feel fulfilled and what achievements am I most proud of? Pretty powerful stuff.
It really is. It's such a journey, And as we dive deeper into all of this, it's so important to remember to be kind to ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in trying to be productive and achieve all the things.
Right.
But sometimes the best thing we can do is just give ourselves permission to rest.
That's so true. And, we were talking about Dr. Sandra Dalton-Smith's work on sacred rest and the different types of rest we all need.
Yeah.
It's not just about sleep. It's about recognizing when we need to recharge mentally, emotionally, even creatively.
Think about it like this. If you were training for a marathon, you wouldn't run at full speed every single day.
Oh, that's a good point.
You need those rest days to let your body recover and rebuild. And it's the same for our minds and our spirits.
I love that analogy. Okay, so we've got rest as a key ingredient in this whole getting unstuck process.
Yeah.
But what about those times when, those feelings of overwhelm or even hopelessness start to creep in?
Yeah.
How do we cultivate that self-compassion that Kristen Neff talks about?
Well, first, it's important to recognize that those feelings are completely normal.
Oh, for sure.
Everyone struggles sometimes.
Right.
And instead of, beating yourself up for not feeling positive enough, try to treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you would offer a friend who's going through a hard time.
So it's like instead of that inner voice saying, what's wrong with you? Get it together.
Yeah.
It's more like, hey, it's okay to feel this way. We all have bad days. What do you need right now?
Exactly. It's about shifting from criticizing yourself to supporting yourself.
I love that.
And sometimes the kindest thing you can do is just acknowledge those feelings and allow yourself to feel them without judgment.
That's powerful. Okay, speaking of tough stuff, I think it's time to address the elephant in the room. Fear of failure. I know I struggle with it, and I bet a lot of our listeners do too.
It's a big one for a lot of people. It can keep us stuck in that rut, afraid to try anything new or take risks because we're terrified of making a mistake.
Yeah.
But you know what? Failure is an essential part of learning and growing.
I've heard that before.
Yeah.
But it's hard to really believe it,
I know. It's easy to fall into that trap of, I messed up, therefore I am a mess.
Totally.
But think about it. Every successful person, every innovator, every artist, they've all failed at some point.
That's true.
The difference is they didn't let those failures define them. They saw them as opportunities to learn and get better.
It's like that Thomas Edison quote, right?
Oh, yeah.
I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work.
Exactly. What a mindset.
That's so good.
And remember, you don't have to go through it alone. Having a supportive community, friends, family, mentors can make all the difference.
Yeah, community is huge. Okay, So we've talked about rest, self-compassion, reframing our relationship with failure. What other tools can we add to our lost, not lazy toolkit?
One practice I find really helpful is mindfulness. Just being present in the moment without judgment. It could be something as simple as taking a few deep breaths, noticing the sensations in your body, or paying attention to what you see and hear around you.
I've tried mindfulness meditation, and it's hard.
Yes.
My mind just wants to race.
I know it takes practice, but it's so worth it. Mindfulness helps us create space between our thoughts and how we react.
Okay.
So we have more control over how we respond to challenges.
I see.
And it can be so grounding, especially when we're feeling lost or overwhelmed.
So it's like hitting pause on that mental chatter that can make us feel so scattered.
Exactly. You reconnect with yourself in the present moment, and that can be so calming and clarifying.
Okay, so we've got values, action, mindset, rest, self-compassion, reframing, failure, mindfulness.
A lot, right?
It is. But where does purpose fit into all of this? We talked about Viktor Frankl's idea that lacking purpose can make us feel lost, but how do we actually connect with that deeper sense of purpose?
Well, it's a journey, not a destination. It starts with that inner work we talked about before, identifying your values, figuring out what brings you joy and fulfillment.
Right. Asking yourself those big questions about what kind of impact you want to make in the world.
And it's okay if we don't have all the answers right away.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's all a process of discovery.
Yeah.
And your purpose doesn't have to be some grand, world-changing mission.
Okay.
It can be as simple as bringing joy to your family, contributing to your community, or pursuing something you're passionate about.
I love that. It takes the pressure off.
Right. It's not about having it all figured out. It's about being open to exploring and letting your purpose evolve as you do.
So it's not static.
Exactly. It's always unfolding.
Okay.
And remember, your purpose can change as you change. So be open to trying new things, exploring different passions and interests. You never know where they might lead.
This is so inspiring. I'm feeling so much more hopeful and empowered just talking about this. But I know for a lot of people, taking that first step is the hardest part.
It is.
What advice would you give to someone who's feeling stuck? Well, first of all, be kind to yourself. It's okay to feel stuck. We all go through it. It's part of being human. And remember, progress over perfection. Don't try to do everything at once. Start small with just one tiny step. Maybe set a timer for 5 minutes and work on that task you've been avoiding. Or just step outside for a few minutes to connect with nature.
Yeah, just something small.
Exactly. The point is to break down those big, overwhelming goals into smaller, more manageable steps. And remember, action creates momentum. Once you start taking those small steps, you'll be amazed at how much easier it becomes to keep going.
And don't forget to celebrate those small wins.
Oh, yes. Celebrating those small wins is so important.
It is.
It reinforces those positive behaviors and keeps you motivated to keep going. It's like giving yourself a pat on the back and saying, hey, I'm doing this. I'm making progress.
I love that. So what are some practical things we can do to start incorporating all of this into our daily lives? How do we actually make that shift from feeling lost to feeling found?
Well, one thing I recommend is creating a morning routine that sets you up for success.
Okay.
This could include things like meditation journaling, gratitude practice, or even just taking a few moments to connect with your breath and set an intention for the day.
It's about starting the day intentionally instead of just reacting to whatever comes your way.
Exactly. And then throughout the day, try to be more mindful in whatever you're doing. Pay attention to the present moment, whether you're washing the dishes, walking the dog, or talking to a friend.
It's about savoring those small moments instead of always rushing to the next thing.
Right. And at the end of the day, take some time to reflect on your experiences.
Oh, yeah.
What went well? What could you have done differently? What are you grateful for? This practice of reflection can really help you learn and grow from those experiences and stay connected to your values and purpose.
That's such a great idea. It's like turning everyday life into an opportunity for learning and growth.
Exactly. And remember, it's okay to ask for help along the way. Whether it's a therapist, a coach, a mentor, or a trusted friend, having that support system can make all the difference.
Speaking of support systems, I think it's time we explore that a little bit more. When we come back, we'll dive into some specific strategies for building a supportive community and cultivating those connections that can help us thrive. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
All right, we're back and ready to tackle the last piece of this puzzle, building a supportive community. You know, as we've been talking about all these strategies for getting unstuck, it's become pretty clear that we can't do it alone.
Yeah, it really does take a village.
It's like we need our own personal cheer squad, right? To keep us going.
Absolutely. Humans are social creatures. We need connection.
We do.
And when we feel isolated or alone, it just makes those feelings of being lost and overwhelmed so much worse.
It's like trying to get through a maze in the dark, right? But having a support system is like having someone there with a flashlight guiding you through.
I love that analogy. So how do we actually build that supportive community?
Right. How do we do it?
Well, it starts with recognizing the people who are already in your life who truly support you and lift you up. Think about those friends, family members, mentors. The people who believe in you, who encourage you to be your best self.
Yeah, the ones who just get you.
Exactly. The ones who make you feel seen and heard, who celebrate your wins and are there for you when you need a shoulder to cry on.
Those are the keepers for sure.
They are. Nurture those relationships.
Yep.
Make time for them. Let them know how much you appreciate them. Those connections are so valuable.
But what about people who don't have that kind of built-in support system?
Yeah.
Maybe they've moved to a new city or they're going through a big life change and feeling a bit isolated. What then?
Then it becomes even more important to be proactive about building those connections.
Okay.
Think about your interests and passions.
Yeah.
Are there groups or clubs you could join, classes you could take, volunteering opportunities in your community?
It's about putting yourself out there, right? Even if it feels a little scary.
It is. And I know for some people, like if you're more introverted, it can feel really daunting.
Yeah.
But honestly, the rewards are often worth the effort. Think about it. Every person you meet has the potential to enrich your life in some way.
Oh, I like that.
You might find a new friend, a mentor, a collaborator.
You never know.
Exactly.
It's like that saying, you have to be interested to be interesting, right? If you show up with curiosity and an open heart, you'd be amazed at the relationships that can develop.
So true. And remember, building those genuine connections takes time. Be patient with yourself in the process.
So important. Okay, I want to touch on something else that's really important when it comes to relationships, setting boundaries.
Oh, yes.
Because even with the best intentions, sometimes relationships can become draining and we end up feeling depleted instead of supported.
Boundaries are essential. It's a form of self-care, especially when we're already feeling lost or overwhelmed.
Right.
It's about learning to say no to things that don't serve us, protecting our time and energy.
It's like saying, I value you in this relationship, but I also need to take care of myself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not selfish. It's self-respect.
It really is.
And it can be as simple as saying, hey, I'd love to help, but I'm swamped right now. Maybe another time.
Or, I appreciate you thinking of me, but that's not really something I'm comfortable with.
Exactly. Be clear and direct in your communication, both with yourself and with others.
Okay.
What are your needs? What are your limits? Communicate them clearly and respectfully.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And, if someone keeps disrespecting your boundaries, that's a red flag.
Yeah, definitely. It might be time to rethink that relationship.
Right. Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect and understanding.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about building those supportive connections, setting boundaries, and all these strategies for finding our purpose and overcoming that feeling of being lost.
Mm-hmm.
But what does it actually look like to live a more purposeful life? How do we make it real?
Well, it goes back to those core principles we talked about, aligning your actions with your values, making choices that are in line with your purpose.
Okay.
It's about asking yourself, does this activity, this relationship, this decision move me closer to or further away from what I want to achieve?
I see. And sometimes that means letting go of things that no longer serve us right.
It does.
Maybe it's a job that's sucking the life out of you, or a relationship that's become toxic. Sometimes letting go is the most purposeful thing you can do.
Absolutely. It opens up space for new opportunities and possibilities.
Yeah, for sure. And, living a purposeful life doesn't mean everything will be perfect or easy. We're still going to face challenges and setbacks.
Oh, for sure.
But when you have that clear sense of why you're doing what you're doing, it makes those challenges easier to handle.
It's like having that inner compass to guide you even when things get tough.
Exactly. And purpose isn't a destination, right? It's a journey.
It is. It's about constantly evolving, growing, and becoming the best version of yourself.
Yeah, I love that. Be patient, be kind to yourself, and trust the process.
Absolutely.
This whole deep dive has been such an amazing reminder that we're not alone in feeling lost.
Not at all.
And that there's so many tools and strategies to help us rediscover our purpose and take action.
I agree. It's been such a pleasure exploring all of this with you.
Me too. Remember, everyone, it all starts with that shift in perspective, from feeling lost and lazy to feeling curious and empowered. You have the power to create a life that is truly meaningful and fulfilling.
So go out there, find your purpose, and live a life that lights you up.
That's a wrap on our deep dive into feeling lost versus lazy. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and practical tools to help you on your journey.
Yeah.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep shining your light.